The big banks have bailed out First Republic, but who is going to bail out the big banks when they start failing? Michael Snyder reports, every single day there are more twists and turns to this new banking panic. In fact, we just learned that the big banks have gotten together to save First Republic. That is good news because the collapse of First Republic would have been a major catastrophe. But First Republic is just one in a very long list of banks that are in very serious jeopardy. For months, I relentlessly warned that our financial system could not handle higher interest rates. It was inevitable that financial institutions would start to break, and that is precisely what has happened. We're in far more trouble than most people realize, and we're still only in the very early chapters of this crisis. Initially, there were rumors that a buyer was being sought for First Republic, but instead the too big to fail banks agreed on a plan to deposit a total of $30 billion into the troubled institution. A group of financial institutions has agreed to deposit $30 billion in First Republic Bank in what's meant to be a sign of confidence in the banking system, the banks announced Thursday afternoon. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, and JP Morgan Chase will contribute about $5 billion apiece, while Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley will deposit around $2.5 billion each, the bank said in a news release. Truist, PNC, U.S. Bancorp, State Street, and Bank of New York Mellon will deposit about $1 billion each. They've all agreed to keep that money in First Republic for at least 120 days, 4 months that is, and you can read the joint press release in of the issue here, the link. Needless to say, executives at First Republic are greatly relieved. So much money has been pulled out of the bank in recent days that at one point on Thursday the stock was selling for less than $20 a share. The First Republic stock, which closed at $115 per share on March 8, traded below $20 at one point on Thursday, the stock was halted repeatedly during the session and rose to $40 per share at one point, up more than 20% on the day. Did insiders at First Republic know that this was coming? It's being reported that top executives had sold off a staggering number of shares since the beginning of 2023. So that's more than coincidence, my comment. First Republic Bank executives quietly sold nearly $12 million worth of its stock in just the past 3 months, according to the Wall Street Journal. Executive Chairman James Herbert II sold the most of any of other insiders, offloading a whopping $4.5 million worth of shares since the start of the year. In all, 4 of the struggling banks' top executives sold $11.8 million worth of stock so far this year, at prices averaging at below $130 a share, the journal found. As I have always said, you only make money in the stock market if you get out in time. And those guys got out in time. So why was First Republic in so much trouble? Well, just like Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, they were sitting on enormous unrealized losses because the government bonds that they were holding had lost a ton of value thanks to rapidly rising interest rates. Ultimately, those unrealized losses made a potential purchase of First Republic quite unappealing to the big banks to fail banks. Too big to fail banks. In the great financial crisis, several struggling banks were bought for cheap by the larger firms in an effort to help calm the banking system. However, the unrealized losses on First Republic's bond portfolio due to last year's rapid rise in interest rates have made an acquisition unappealing, the sources said. The markdown, which would involve the bank's held-to-maturity bond portfolio, would amount to about $25 billion whole on First Republic's balance sheet, sources told Faber. But the too big to fail banks are collectively sitting on hundreds of billions of dollars in unrealized losses themselves, and they also have trillions of dollars worth of exposure to the derivatives bubble. So who is going to bail them out when they start failing? That is a question that we all need to start asking. And as trouble increasingly shakes our banking sector, that is going to have enormous implications for our economy as a whole. A fall in bank deposits will lead to less high-powered money, hence bank reserves in the system, which means considerably tighter financial conditions than hitherto experienced. That would be the final straw for an economy that was already highly likely to enter a recession as soon as this summer. In order for our current economic system to function effectively, we need stable banks and we need people to have faith in those banks. For the moment, most ordinary Americans say that they still have faith in the institutions where they are currently doing their banking. 7 in 10 people surveyed say they still have faith in the banks. That compares with 2/3 of customers who said they'd trust banks in February, the Morning Consult survey found. But the same cannot be said for those at the top of the economic food chain. In fact, many of them are now transferring vast sums out of their banks while they still can. Wealthy investors and family offices are moving more of their money out of the bank cash balances and into treasuries, money markets, and other short-term instruments, according to wealth advisors. High net worth investors typically keep millions of dollars or even tens of millions in cash in their bank accounts to cover bills and unexpected expenses. Their balances are often way above the $250,000 FDIC insured limit. Following the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and potential cracks in the network of regional banks, wealth advisors say many clients are now asking fundamental questions about how and where to keep their cash. The crisis is just getting started. Every domino that falls is just going to make things even worse, and ultimately I believe that the entire system is heading for an unprecedented meltdown. So I would encourage you to do whatever you need to do to protect yourself, because things are only going to get crazier from here. This is by Michael Snyder, about the author. My name is Michael, and my brand new book entitled End Times is now available on Amazon. In addition to my new book, I've written 6 other books that are available on Amazon, including 7-Year Apocalypse, Lost Prophecies of the Future of America, The Beginning of the End, and Living a Life That Really Matters. When you purchase any of these books, you help to support the work that I'm doing, and one way that you can really help is by sending copies as gifts to family and friends. Time is short, and I need help getting these warnings into the hands of as many people as possible. I've published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream, and The Most Important News, and the articles that I publish on those sites are republished on dozens of other prominent websites all over the globe. I always freely and happily allow others to republish my articles on their own websites, but I also ask that they include this about the author section with each article. The material contained in this article is for general information purposes only, and readers should consult licensed professionals before making any legal, business, financial, or health decisions. I encourage you to follow me on social media on Facebook and Twitter, and any way that you can share these articles with others is definitely great help. These are such troubled times and people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, I strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. This is by Michael Snyder on the Economic Collapse blog. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box